boards up there. And it's Eli the Amazing.
Yes, and we have Mr. Sandoy. So, Mr. Sandoy, just here to ask you a couple of questions about your life. Where were you born?
I was born in Kitimat, British Columbia, south of the Alaskan border.
Oh, how was that town? How long did you live there?
Well, I lived there for a year. In the wintertime, my dad jumped out of the second floor window and dug his way to the street with a snow shovel. That should give you an idea of the weather there.
So you were in the military for many years.
Yes, I was.
Why did you decide to go into the military?
Well, because when I grew up, I heard all the stories that my dad and his relatives told about the war, and then I saw all, the great cavalry movies with John Wayne in that.
So tell me about your time in the military.
Well, I was 4 years at West Point, and then I was 1 year going to school, where I went airborne school and ranger school and the armor basic course, and then I was 3 years in Germany, and I had a cavalry platoon, and I was the XO of cavalry troops. So platoon's got 40 guys and 10 tracked vehicles, and a company or troops got 167 guys and 44 tracked vehicles.
So do you have any interesting moments from your time in the military?
Interesting times. When I was in Germany the first time, we had 3 people who successfully escaped from East Germany, or 3 groups of people that successfully escaped. And one of them was a Disney movie, honest to God. There was a group of balloonists who got balloons that they just barely got over the border, and they got picked up, and that was when we were on the border, but the German police picked them up. Then there was a guy who was on the Polish border, and he put his family in a 2-seater plane, and then he didn't know how to land. He knew how to take off, and they headed west. But the problem was the border zigzagged like this, so he was going in and out of East and West Germany. So one of our attack helicopters came up and flew up next to him and signaled for him to land. And the guy didn't know that they didn't know how to land, so he signaled him to land on a ridge line on a farm field. And the guy landed and his family survived, so, obviously not a nice place to be. And then the last time I was on the border, there was a guy who 4 years before he had tried to escape, and they had a fake fence. So he thought he had made it across the fake fence, then he got arrested. And then as soon as he got out, he got on a bus, and they got on a train, got on another bus. He walked to the fake fence, hopped over from a tree branch so they didn't set the alarms off. Then he got to a corner of the fence and dug through razor wire in the dirt in a thunderstorm to get through. So I just remember that communism was not for most people. That's what I took out of that.
I have some photos behind you there. What can you tell me about those?
Well, on the top, that is me and my 2 sons at the northwest tip of the United States. And we met a guy from Finland there. And he had a T-shirt on, and the shirt said Finland 2, Russia 0. Because he was in the Finnish army. And then the second one is me and my older son on Mount Elbert this summer. And that's the highest peak in the Rockies. And then the one in the middle is my younger son and his girlfriend, and they live with me with their little kid right now. And then this is me in the cavalry troop I was in the first time in Germany. And behind there is a World War II tank. And that's Tom Kite. He was our troop commander. And Tom Brossard, he died. He only had a quarter of a lung. And then John Medvey, and then John Wozniak. Those were a little band of brothers, long time ago.
Okay. So, you have when did you start your teaching career and why?
Well, I had always planned on teaching after I was done in the Army. I think because there were a bunch of movies back then where they had people who went off to war and one of the officers had been somebody's teacher. So I guess that's the real reason for that. So that's how I got into teaching.
Any interesting stories about your teaching career?
Any interesting stories about my teaching career. Interesting stories. Let's think. I don't know, my brain is kind of full. I can think of people, but interesting stories.
Well, here, how about I'll make it a little bit more specific for you.
Okay.
What was your favorite year of teaching thus far?
My favorite year of teaching thus far. It was like 5, 6 years ago when all I taught was physics. And there's like one class that was like it had all the cheerleaders, and then it had a whole bunch of baseball and football players, and it was just an interesting group of personalities. But the moment that I remembered was there's a guy who came here. His mom was in the Army up at Leavenworth, and she wanted him to be recruited as a quarterback at KU. Well, he was quite the handsome guy, because I remember the cheerleaders are always, they'd be focused, work, and then when they were done, they were on the shopping network. Well, the guy walked in, and first thought in my head was Brad Pitt has entered the building. But what was more interesting for me was, it was just the cheerleaders stopped working. They were incapable of working after that. I thought that was quite funny for myself.
So, in terms of your personal life, you're a big runner?
Well, yeah, I try to run, but now my little body doesn't quite let me run as much as I do. But I've run since I was 14, I guess, on and off.
And you recently had a grandson?
Yes, Luke Skywalker, which makes me Emperor Palpatine, I guess. No, his last name is not Skywalker, but his first name is Luke. And he's 3 months old, and he's a happy little fellow. Let's see if we have a picture of him here. We can find Mr. Luke. Mr. Luke, where's Mr. Luke here, smiling? We go here, one. Oh, here we go. Come on, get bigger little picture. There. So there's Mr. Luke when he's happy. Unlike when he has his patented frown, when he doesn't get what he wants.
Well, is there anything else you want to add, Mr. Sandoy?
No, I'll say what I like about teaching is I like being around all the students. Because, see, somewhere in the back of my head, I still think I'm 20. So when I'm around the students, it makes me feel like I'm still 20. And then I go home again and look at the mirror and say, who is that guy?
All right, well, I think I've gotten all the questions answered.
Did I leave my keys in here?
Somebody left. Yep. There we go.